There's definitely an overpopulation of poorly bred dogs in our world. How can you help as one person? By putting some research and thought into purchasing your next puppy and knowing exactly what conditions and situations that puppy has been raised in. That's what we're talking about today on the McCann Dogs podcast.
Hey, Swanee.
Yeah, Shannon?
Have you ever seen that House Hippo commercial?
I have seen the House Hippo commercial.
Isn't it hilarious?
It is good. It is good. It is very believable, too.
It is, absolutely. So give us the House Hippo commercial in a nutshell. For people who have not seen the House Hippo commercial, I suggest that you Google it right now and watch it because it is incredibly entertaining. What an adorable little creature. And I want one. And anybody who wants to buy me one, by all means, buy me a House Hippo.
Yes,
I want a House Hippo.
I think it came on probably maybe back in the 80s to begin with. And it was to teach kids that things that they see on TV aren't necessarily real, even though they can look really real. So what they did was they used some fancy camera work and they took a wild African hippo, full-sized hippo, but they made him look small and they put him in the house. And it showed him nestling on lint, dryer lint, walking past the cat's food bowl, eating peanut butter and toast crumbs.
Having a little bath in a water bowl.
Right, yeah. And for all intents and purposes, it looked like a mouse-sized hippo that lives in your house. And it looked very real. And then, of course it said, hippos aren't real. Like house hippos aren't real. And it showed a full-size hippo.
But it sure looked real, didn't it?
Yes, yes. And, just a warning to kids. Back in the 80s. Now, I've seen it revived, too, and I've seen it revived a bit with, not everything on the internet you see is real.
Absolutely.
And we all know that, but there are still adults who get duped on the internet.
So here's the thing. Today's episode is all about educating adults who don't believe in the house hippo, but who buy the cute little pictures of the puppies online and then get themselves into hot water with that. So that's what we're talking about today on the McCann Dogs podcast. And the first thing that I want to say is Amazon has a great model of business in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to any sort of live animal purchase, you do not want to go with something that operates like a giant Amazon.
Right.
If you go to a website and you see a whole bunch of pictures of really, really cute puppies, and there seems to be an inordinate amount of puppies coming from this one singular source, run. Do not walk. Run away from the computer. Go and forget about the images of the cute puppies because it's hard to get those out of your head, and especially if you're thinking like, I really want a puppy right now. I really want to add something to my life, or, we're ready as a family to add a puppy to our lives. We're ready as a family to add a dog to, get into a lovely creature to share our love.
Right.
You need to put some thought and some education and some research into that decision because it is so easy to go down the wrong path these days.
It is.
And I mean, our internet, our social media, our ability to, get things at the drop of a hat.
Right.
I order things from Amazon in the morning and it's at my house at night. So we think that convenience needs to be packaged for everything, and it should not be. An animal is not something that you should buy on an impulse, that you should acquire in any way on an impulse. An animal is something that should be entered into with a lot of thought and a lot of careful planning. So,
and one thing I want to mention too is that often these websites show no parents. There's no parents of the dogs ever posted. And if they do post them, how do you know that that's the real parents? Yeah. When you buy a puppy, the puppy is only a puppy for a fraction of time. They're going to be that cute, tiny little puppy only for about a month.
Yeah.
And then they start to grow. So when you buy a puppy, you're really buying the adult dog.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the adult dog and how it looks and how appealing it looks, its temperament, that is what's important.
Yeah.
All puppies are cute.
Yeah, it's true.
All puppies are cute. True. So when you look at a puppy, think, you know what? This is 1 month. I'm going to have 15 years of the adult dog. I need to know what the adult dog is going to be like.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's back up for a second, because I'm sure that there's people out there who are listening who are thinking like, well, if I'm going to get the dog and I'm going to give it a really good life because I believe in myself. And, it's not that the impulse in people makes them bad people. That's absolutely not what we're trying to convey at all. But our society has suggested that everything should be gotten on impulse at this point. And, that our credit system allows for that. There's so many reasons that we've become hardwired to say, I want that, I want it now, and I'm going to get it now. Mm-hmm. And if we have to put any patience on the line, we usually move on from that and on to the next thing.
Right.
So people who are thinking, I'm going to get this dog and I'm going to give it a great life. And that's fabulous. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people who will. There's a lot of people who, even though they're buying on impulse, they're going to have that dog for life and care for it for life and make sure that it has this amazing life right up until the end, whenever that happens to be. So what is the problem here? Why is it detrimental to anybody? Let's break that down today. That's exactly what I want to get, out of this podcast is, what is the detriment to buying a puppy on impulse?
Well, we're often not prepared, or maybe at a true point in our life where we can do that puppy justice.
Right. Okay.
We may not be financially prepared for what buying a puppy on impulse means. Mm-hmm. Is the family ready? Is your family on board?
Yeah.
That's a big thing. Like, if I rushed out and buy a puppy, I want to make sure my spouse is on board too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about preparedness for a minute. And we've done episodes on specific breeds and breed tendencies, et cetera, before. So there's lots of great information in the bank already on the McCann Dogs podcast about what you should look for when it comes to matching a puppy or bringing home a puppy that is going to match your lifestyle. So I don't really want to get into a ton of that, but let's just talk briefly about the idea of knowing the energy level of the puppy, knowing what the puppy is going to be like in terms of temperament, knowing if it's going to fit into your lifestyle. Let's just talk briefly about the idea of finding something that works for you. How do you go about that? How do you decide on what breed of dog you're going to get first and foremost?
Well, I'll often make a list for myself of things that I value in the dog. Mm-hmm. And then when I go to start looking, I'm going to look at adult pictures and read adult descriptions of that breed. And I'm also going to, when I do finally choose the breed, I want to meet some adults of that breed. At the very least, if it was the farm down the road has had a litter of puppies, I'm going to go and meet those parents. And I'm going to say, you know what? I adore the father. I adore the mother. Chances are my puppy's going to grow up like them. Mm-hmm. However, if I go to that farm and I meet the father and the mother and, one of them is very fearful or one of them is pushy and jumpy, right away I might start to ask questions. Yeah. Is this a temperament issue? Is it, if the person's making excuses, well, I've never got them off the farm, they're not used to things,
Yeah.
a good dog temperament's going to shine.
It really is.
It's going to shine through these things. So
yeah.
I want to see the parents. That's so important to me. And I know sometimes you can't always meet the father, but you can see videos of the father. You could talk to the owner of the father, but you should be able to meet that mother dog.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you were going to buy a new dog right now, what would be your first step? What would be the first thing that you would do?
It would be choosing the dog that suits my lifestyle at the moment.
And how do you figure that out?
Do I want a dog that is active? Do I want a dog that is non-shedding, shedding? What are my goals with the dog? Okay. So what are my goals? Are my goals to compete in different dog sports? Or are my goals just to have a great companion dog? Right. That's when I got Honda, I wanted just a dog to be in our house, just an easy, fun, non-shedding dog that would be easy to raise.
Perfect.
Whereas other times I've wanted dogs for competitive work. So I'm going to decide, what do I want in my dog?
Awesome. So you've got your laundry list of must-haves, and you probably have an idea of what you don't want as well. I like sort of a medium-sized dog, so I'm probably going to rule out the Mastiffs and things like that in my life. I did start with a Rottweiler, and I loved my Rottweiler, but I don't know that I would want a dog that hefty again. Right. I like my Tollers. There's other dogs that are medium-sized dogs if I wanted a quote-unquote tougher dog or a dog that I could, get into other sports with, etc. So now I have my laundry list of wants and don't wants, but where do I go from there? Right. What would be your next step? So, okay, now I know what I'm kind of looking for. Where do I look?
Right. Well, I might look at books that have been published about that breed. I'm going to look online, but keeping in mind, anyone can write something online. I could write a great big astronomy paper and put it online. And you know what? I know nothing about astronomy.
I want you to do that. Do that. There are stars in the sky. They are bright. They're not made of gas. They're blinking lights. That's what they are. Right. That would be what my astronomy paper would be like. So
I might talk to, maybe I would talk, if it's a breed that needs a lot of grooming, maybe I'll talk to a groomer about that breed. Maybe I'll talk to a veterinarian. Maybe I'll go to a dog show. And now it's not always the best to talk to breeders at dog shows because they are busy showing their dogs, but at least I can see the dogs.
Absolutely.
And maybe I can, make contact with a breeder and say, can I call you next week and have talk with you? I might talk to dog trainers. We at McCann's have seen like a lot of breeds.
Yes.
And we know a lot of the breed tendencies. So I'm going to look for people who are experts on that breed.
Yeah.
And find out the good and the bad.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about sourcing that dog a little bit more. You mentioned going to a dog show to connect with a breeder. So that's one fabulous way of getting out and seeing a ton of breeds too.
Right.
So say you're just entering into this idea of getting a dog and you're like, okay, I don't know where to go. So you Google, Toller doodles, let's just say, even though I have Tollers, not Toller doodles, but let's just say let's go with Goldie Poos. It's a much more popular mixed breed. So let's say you've met 3 or 4 Goldie Poos in your neighborhood and you are head over heels with them and you're convinced that a Goldie Poo is the perfect dog for you. So how do I find a Goldie Poo now? What am I going to do to find a Goldie Poo? So you might talk to those people in your neighborhood and say, hey, where did you get your dog?
Right.
And maybe get a referral to a breeder because there's lots of local breeders, right? That is a good start. You might talk to the vet, see if they have any recommendations. The vets work, especially repro vets. Not repo vets.
Reproductive vets.
Reproductive vets will work with a lot of breeders. So they'll have good ideas for you about, these people are excellent. They do a fabulous job raising their puppy. They're right on top of any health concerns. They make sure that they're not breeding health concerns. They make sure to do the appropriate genetic testing for that breed, et cetera, et cetera. And to be clear, when you're dealing with a mixed breed, you have 2 sets of genetic tests that you want to make sure that you confirm are done. Simply saying, we do not breed a dog who has shown any sort of genetic abnormality is not enough. And I say that in my most serious voice because a lot of the broker websites that you see out there will use very fancy language. And a broker is somebody who takes puppies from a bazillion different sources and makes them saleable to the public who don't know where these puppies came from, who haven't seen how the parents were kept, etc.
Right.
And I say this because normally they're puppy mills.
Yes.
Yes,
and you're buying a puppy from 2 parents who are living their lives in a wire crate.
Yeah, absolutely. And the sad part is you make the life better for that puppy, but the generations that come after it to continue the mill of money coming in, it is just absolutely awful to think about what buying that puppy who comes from a puppy mill and supporting those systems, even unknowingly. It is heartbreaking to think about the other dogs that are in torture so that puppy could be sold. And, the websites are shiny.
Oh, they are.
We
and
were
slick.
looking,
Very slick.
We were looking at one before filming this or before recording this episode and just like, wow, they put a lot of work into this website to make it look like these puppies are all really well cared for and loved, et cetera, et cetera. But even just the fact that every single picture, and there were hundreds on this website that we were looking at, I'm not giving any specific names here because I don't want to drive traffic to any of those sites and perpetuate any of those sites even further. But do your own looking and Googling out there, if you will. And there were so many pictures and they were all in the same setting. They were all with the same cute, big, fuzzy stuffed animal with this cute little puppy draped over the stuffed animal. And of course they're adorable. Of course you look at them and go,
they're freshly bathed. They're fluffed up.
They certainly look
they're
like
colorful.
They're well loved and well cared for. But you know what? If you think about just the fact that, so first off, if I'm buying a puppy from a breeder, I want to make sure that that breeder has raised that puppy and knows everything about that puppy from birth onward. I want to make sure that I know that the breeder has invested in those puppies in every way, shape, and form. They've not just given the puppy a quick bath, plunked it on a stuffed animal, taken a picture, and then said, perpetuated this idea that this puppy has been well cared for, well raised, well loved, etc. It's a picture,
right? Yeah.
It might as well be an AI picture.
And you have no clue what the temperament is like.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
puppy could be the most fearful puppy, or that puppy could be the most aloof, I don't care about people at all puppy.
Yeah.
So you cannot tell temperament, and you have to live with this dog for 15 years.
Yeah, potentially. Absolutely. And, if you've got this vision in your head of what you want with a puppy, and, you want to bring home your puppy and have it be your best buddy and adventure together and bond together and go to class together, or, terrorize the neighborhood together, whatever things you want to do together, that might be something that you're going to need to forget about, because you have this puppy that does not fit and match that lifestyle, or genetically is not capable, or, whatever the case may be physically, if they have health issues that show up at a young age. And again, if you're buying a dog from a breeder, there should be health testing on the parents, right? There should be heart clearances, hip clearances, eye clearances, and a lot of these things are breed dependent.
Right.
So some breeds have specific problems that you want to make sure are not going to be an issue for your puppy.
Right.
That's why we go to a good breeder who understands the health concerns in their breeds, and who understands how to make sure they're not producing those health concerns by pairing the wrong people.
The parents shouldn't be under a year old, or even under 2 years old. A lot of health issues don't show up until the dog is around 2 years old.
Yeah.
So if you're breeding a dog on its first or second season, who knows what it could come up with a year from now. That dog could come out with, progressive retinal atrophy in its eyes, or anything. So you do not buy a puppy from young parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just bad. Yeah,
it really is. And truly, it is a scary thing to look into that great beyond and have no idea of what to expect.
Right.
To not have confirmation that the parents were both heart tested. So I know that my puppy's chances of having a heart defect are going to be pretty small. Look into the breeds you're interested in, because there's a lot of trends. Getting outside of the like the mixed breed Goldie Poo, etc. But trust me when I say, if you're buying a Goldie Poo, you still want to make sure that it's not this backyard bred situation, that the person who is breeding the poodle and the golden retriever together has health tested those parents, or if it's a second generation, they've health tested those parents for all of the genetic defects, etc. But we desperately need to make sure that we are supporting the right systems. Right. And so if I go to any sort of a breeder, whether it's, a mixed breed, whether it's a purebred dog, I want to see proof of those genetic health tests.
Yes.
I can go to the OFA website and I can have a look at, in our system in Ontario, I can have a look at those health tests that have been done, and I can confirm that dog, those parents have been health tested for this thing. And then I'm not going to end up with a heartbreaking situation in a year or in 2 years down the road.
Or an extremely financial situation.
Yes, exactly.
Veterinary care is very expensive.
It is. It's so expensive these days.
Yes.
Do you carry health insurance on any of your pets?
I haven't. Touch wood. I've been very lucky, and maybe I will for my next dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Levon, my 9-month-old Toller, is the first dog I have carried health insurance on, because I'm a planner and a saver, and I've always had savings in the bank, that I've made sure to have savings in the bank. My adult life, my teen years were different, but my adult life, I'm very, calculated.
Right.
So I've always thought I will be fine between credit cards and the savings that I have in the bank. Anything that comes up with my dogs, I can handle. And I've always been confident about that. But Ned went in for a bit of diarrhea, maybe about 6 months ago. And normally that would have been like a vet visit cost, right? Maybe a bit of metronidazole, maybe like $130, right? That's what I was expecting the vet bill to be. And their machines were down. This is why it stands out in my head, because I didn't just tap my card and move on with my life. Their machines were down. And I said, okay, well, I have like $150 cash between my wallet and my car, because in case the machines ever go down, I like to have some cash. Back when I think it was Royal Bank or something went down, I needed gas and I had no cash and I couldn't use my cards, and it was just this awful situation. So now I always have some, $50 or $100 or whatever. So I came up with $140 and I went back in to the vet clinic. And I was like, okay, I think I've got enough cash. And she gives me my bill and it was $300.
Right.
And I thought, nope, gonna need to go to a bank machine then.
Yeah.
I'll be back.
Yeah.
I thought, oh my goodness, how is it possible that just going in for, I was able to call and make an appointment. It wasn't an emergency visit. Went in, got some metronidazole, they did a quick exam and didn't come up with anything alarming. So he just needed some support to get through it. And I thought, $300 for that visit. And then his emergency neuter, which happened last year as well, it was over $2,000 for that bill. And I thought, when I bring that puppy home, I'm getting insurance.
Right.
Because this is getting stupid. It's getting to the point where it could get into the tens of thousands of dollars, and I don't want to make decisions based on that. So the new pup has insurance and will carry insurance his whole life, and that's new for me.
Right. Well,
that's new for me.
Myself, working in veterinary emergency and referral, I have routinely billed out people in the tens of thousands.
Oh my goodness. Yep. What's the highest bill you can remember?
I think it was low 20,000s. Yeah, in total.
A lot of money.
Yes, and it was a cat.
Wow.
I had a brain surgery. So,
oh my goodness.
And quite a long stay with us. So, so veterinary fees have, and the vets aren't trying to gouge us. No, this is just what things cost. Like, don't begrudge the vets. Their equipment costs money.
Absolutely.
They are paying their employees living wages and paying for all that equipment. So it's not the vet. It's, Yes.
Yeah. Well, and we want good vets so that we have good vet care, but holy cow, the cost of everything has gone through the roof. Yes. So of course vet care has as well. And you're right, all the machines, everything is so expensive.
Right. So we want a healthy puppy. Yes. That is so important. And there's nothing more heartbreaking. I had to put to sleep a dog at 2.5 years of age. It was heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking to lose her. She ended up having a form of cancer. And her breeder, he apologized and gave us a new puppy for free to replace her. But not some breeders won't do that.
Yeah,
and
sure.
You have the heartbreak of losing your dog at a young age and all the expense that went along with it.
Yeah. So getting back to the shiny websites, I think that was the original thing that I was talking about. And they tell a good story.
They do.
I was looking through like the frequently asked questions section and how do I guarantee that my puppy is going to be healthy? And they basically say things with, big shiny words. They say things like, we don't breed dogs that have shown any genetic defects. We don't breed dogs that have had any health issues, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, again, like you said, you can breed a dog on their first heat cycle. Right. You shouldn't, but you can breed a dog on the first heat cycle, and at age 3, they come up with some horrible genetic defect, right? So that's being passed on to your puppy. Now your puppy has that potential to develop that awful thing as well.
Right.
And you probably won't ever even know about it, because when you are buying from brokers, etc., you're just a paycheck. Yeah. That's it. With this website we went on, we basically clicked on the puppy, decided to reserve it and buy it. We put it in our cart as we would on Amazon. Yeah. We decided on our shipping options.
Yeah, there was lots of shipping options.
Yep. We could pick up the puppy ourselves, or we could have it shipped to us for a fee of, $500-$600 for somebody to drive it to us within a certain distance. We could also pay $2,000 to have a nanny bring the dog to us and hand it off at the airport, etc. So I personally question, if I was breeding dogs, I would not just be handing my puppy off to anybody. I would want to know a bit about that family, a bit about what the puppy's life was going to be. And I think some people find that invasive. So let's talk about that for a minute, because I can appreciate that there is a very broad spectrum of people out there. And I personally like to have a relationship with my dog's breeders. My dogs have had fabulous breeders over the years, people who I've been very, very invested in the Toller community over the years. I've served on many boards and clubs and, I got whole hog into Tollers.
Right.
Whole hog into Tollers when I got my first Toller. I had to do a lot of legwork to try to find my first Toller because they were a very rare breed back in those days, 2001. Right. They're not as rare anymore. They've gotten quite popular because, of course, they're adorable and wonderful and perfect. But I remember it was a lot of work, and I would reach out to breeders, and some of them would get back to me, and some of them wouldn't. I would email, and some would respond to me and some wouldn't. And I stumbled on Jaden, my first Toller, his breeder, and she invited me out to meet the dogs. That was the first thing. I sent her an email, and she did respond back to me and said, if you want to come out and meet some of my dogs, you're welcome to do so. So then we got on a phone call and we had a chat and arranged a date for me to go out and meet her and meet the dogs. And I met some of her dogs and, really stable dogs, nice tempered dogs. We wandered around her property a bit with the dogs. There were several of them on our hike. It was a really nice experience where I got to ask lots of questions.
Right, yeah.
I got to see what the dogs were like together. I got to see sort of their energy level, et cetera. And I decided that, this is going to be a good fit for my lifestyle. I did lots of research on the breed as well so that I knew more about them and I could confirm that it was going to fit well into my lifestyle. And again, I'm a planner, so this was natural to me. Yes. I'm not somebody who is going to click on, even if I was buying a car, right? I might look at the car online, but then I'm going to go and test drive it. I'm going to ask people who've had that vehicle. I'm going to do more research. That's who I am.
Right, yes.
There's lots of people who sort of want to skip that step, which I think sometimes that makes them stay a little bit further away from a good breeder, because a good breeder is not just going to go, yep, here's your puppy.
Oh, never. Yes. So a good breeder wants to show off their dogs. Yeah. So, I pretty much every breeder I've been to, it's been an entire afternoon when I go to meet them.
Yeah.
And, one breeder invited me for lunch and we had coffee and she had old photo albums. We went through old photo albums, old pedigrees. Yeah. She showed me her old dogs. She's like, this guy's 11, this guy's 13. And I could see the love she had. I met the parents, maybe not the father, but definitely the mother. They chat and they love their dogs and they want to know where their puppies are going.
Absolutely.
Because their puppies are like an extension of them.
Yes, absolutely. And every single Toller that I have had, I am contractually obligated to send that Toller back to the breeder if I can no longer keep that Toller. Yep. If I am breaking a legal contract, if I do anything with that Toller other than bring it back to the breeder if I can no longer keep it. Right. And I think that is such a responsible thing to do. And I'll tell you, it is one of the reasons I will never breed, because I know that I will be that breeder who says, if you send it if this dog ends up in a shelter, I am hunting you down.
Right, exactly.
I am hunting you down.
Yes. I truly feel if I bring these puppies into the world, then I am responsible for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the people I give them to have to be just as responsible as me. And it doesn't matter if they're pet families, show people, that dog has to be important to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I can't imagine just somebody selling me a puppy and not even knowing who I am.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing that I would want as a breeder is I want people to go into this with reality top of mind.
Exactly.
So I'm not cleaning my house for a couple of days before that person shows up because I want them to see,
yes,
you know what, this is what your floors are going to look like. Yep. You're going to have little hairs everywhere and there's probably going to be some Toller hair tumbleweeds. Yep. Even as you just put the vacuum away, you'll see.
Right. Yep.
If you have Tollers in your home or Shelties or Golden Retrievers, the magical orb of joy, or the magical fibers of joy type breeds, right? Shedding everywhere. Yep. this is what your house is going to be like. Are you a fastidious person? Is this going to bother you? Because this is what it's going to be like for you.
Yep.
You know, they're muckers, right? Yep. Tollers are muckers. It's part of what I love about them.
Right, yep.
But are you going to be okay with that? They make this ungodly noise. They scream when they're excited. It's horrible.
Right.
It's ear piercing. It's glass shattering. It sounds like a monkey being fed into a wood chipper. It's an awful noise. Are you going to be able to live with that?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Or if you have, say, a boxer or a basset hound,
Yep.
they're going to drool on you. You're going to have shiny spots on your black pants, which is dog drool. You're going to find dog drool stuck to your walls.
Yes.
You know, your hands are going to get wet, and dog drool often smells.
Yeah.
Are you prepared for all that if you've chosen one of the drooly breeds?
Yeah. I want to make sure that if I am selling a dog, that person is going to train that dog.
Right.
Especially if I make them contractually obligated to give me back that dog if they can't keep it. You know, can you imagine getting back a 2-year-old dog that's not had any training?
Right.
And
yes.
And that would be the situation I would be in if I was breeding and chose the wrong family. So,
and I'm going to want them too to tell me about past dogs they've owned.
Yes.
You know, tell me about your old dogs, and they're interested in hearing about your dogs. And if you're a first-time dog owner, that's okay too, because now you have a mentor. You have that good breeder who's going to help you. Yeah. And breeders are a wealth of information.
They really, really are. They really, really are. And there's so much to be said for having that experience before you dive in whole hog into this thing. Having that experience where you go out, you meet the dogs, you hear all about them as well, because of course a good breeder is going to tell you the negative traits of the breed, which, you know, you may or may not see as negative, but truly you need to know, because if you can't live with those negative traits, you should move on from that breed.
Right, yes.
Everybody can live with the positive traits of a breed. You know, nobody is ever going to say, oh, this dog's too loyal for me. This dog's too beautiful for me. This coat's too beautiful for me. Like, nobody's going to have trouble with those things.
Right.
It's the negatives that come along with the breed. The shedding, the mess, the, you know, tendency
the barking,
towards
tendency
noise.
to bark, tendency to nip and chase. And
exactly.
And even if you say, you know what, I don't want a dog like that. If you find, someone who's had an accidental litter, or, as I mentioned earlier, the farmer down the road has bred the dog, they should too be genuinely interested in you.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like I remember when I was a little girl, my parents, we went to a farm and got a border collie from a farm. And the farmer and his wife, they invited us in the house. We played with the puppies. My parents chatted while my brother and I played with them. And it was just a good experience. It wasn't us walking up to a door, them, as my dad handing over $300 and them handing us a puppy.
$300, eh?
It probably wasn't even that.
Wow, back in the day.
It was... it was a whole experience. Yeah. Like, they were genuinely interested. And I remember we went out and we met the parents and we played with them, and it was a whole experience. And you want your puppy to come from something like that. Yeah. Not a complete unknown where the almighty dollar is what's dictating.
Exactly. With the shiny website, right?
And another thing too, you shouldn't pay more for colors. Like, that's ridiculous.
That is a really good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah, like a pure blonde or a pure black puppy should cost the exact same as a blue merle puppy. Yeah. There is no reason a blue merle puppy should cost more.
Well, and here's another little tidbit of information, especially with merle stuff. There's lots of very beautiful merle coats out there, which a merle is what? How would you describe it? Like a model?
It's like a model of, usually it's often gray, black, and white, or red, black, and white. It's
patchy,
it's quite patchy,
really, really attractive.
It's very, and often they come with blue eyes or one blue eye. So they're very unique looking.
They are.
But with these unique coats, there's often recessive genes at play.
And what happens if you breed a merle to a merle?
If you breed a merle to a merle, you're doubling up on the recessives and creating some lethal genes. Dogs can be deaf. Dogs can be blind. Dogs can have a lot of immune issues. Sometimes bad things do happen even with good breeders.
Yeah, absolutely. But the way they deal with it is different. Supportive, helpful, Right. If you have a dog from a broker and you approach them and say, my dog's unhealthy,
Right. Or they'll use an
Okay.
excuse. Well, what did you feed the dog? Well,
Yeah.
we don't recommend that dog food. It's like,
Yeah.
that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Or they won't return your phone calls, or, maybe they'll replace the pup with another unhealthy pup because they're just churning them out. So
Right.
here we
Yes.
go. All right. Well, I can offer this shiny guarantee on my website, but it's not based on any real knowledge, right? You're still heartbroken in the end. You're
Right.
still stuck with huge vet bills
Right.
in the end. You're
Yes.
still,
Yes.
left devastated with your sick puppy who may or may not be enjoying a life at all.
Right, right.
It's
Yes.
a really sad
Yes.
situation. So, I want to talk a little bit about education for even knowing if there is a puppy, because there's a lot of scams. And actually, when we came in here to the studio and we were talking about doing this episode today, we were chatting about some of the scams that are out there from like Facebook Marketplace and people going and sending money to people and then they never hear back. Or I remember I wrote a blog post about one, I think, several years ago, where people had sent the check, waited for the day, had all this communication with the breeder, had sent their deposit check, and then had sent the full amount just prior to 8 weeks. And they drove their couple of hours to pick up the puppy, and they knocked on the door, and the people who answered the door were like, "What? What puppies? We don't have any puppies."
Wow.
And basically they just said goodbye to their money and went on a wild goose chase to some random person's address
Right.
who had no idea who they were, because there never was a puppy to begin with. I mean, if you think about what just happened in Toronto with Taylor Swift tickets and how many
Right,
people got
yes.
scammed out of their money
Yes.
because of Taylor Swift tickets, like,
What a
people
great
who
scam.
are
Yes.
unscrupulous, they have no boundaries.
Right, yep.
Live animals, Taylor Swift tickets, vehicles, it doesn't matter. People who are looking to cheat you out of your money are going to tell you what you want to hear.
Right. Yes.
So
yes.
make sure there is a puppy.
Yeah, I've heard of people too who have purchased breeds of dogs, like say a Pomsky, which is supposedly a Pomeranian mixed with a Husky.
And it ends up being 120 pounds.
Yeah, so they get this little puppy, and of course all puppies start off little, but the puppy keeps growing and growing and growing, and what they have is like something that resembles a Husky, but it's Husky size too. It's so people will be unscrupulous too to unload puppies.
Yeah. Absolutely. The same thing happens in rescue. It's really easy to convince people with a picture of a puppy, and especially one that is supposedly in some sort of peril, right? Like that just, our hearts just go out instantly, understandably so, right?
Yes.
You see this sad story and you're like, oh gosh, I just want to help. Where can I donate, or how can I know I will never let this puppy suffer a day in its life, so I'm going to get this puppy and I'm going to give it a great life. But is there even a puppy to begin with? And how many dogs are suffering behind that puppy because somebody knows how to tug on your heartstrings?
Right.
It's easy to fall for these scams and then in hindsight realize that you were thinking with your heart instead of your head. And I firmly believe that we all need to use our heart, but I even more firmly believe that we all need to have at least a dose of head in there as well.
Yes.
So that we can see through the emotional manipulation, right? And again, it's a cute puppy. That's what you get stuck on, right? Or a dog that needs help, a dog that needs some sort of a stable home environment, and you think you can provide that to them. So let's talk a little bit about the rescue industry and how there's a very big division in the rescue industry between real rescue and real people who take good care of dogs, who take them out of situations that are not good and care for them and help to rehabilitate them and might foster them, etc., or keep or house them for however long until they find a great home for that dog. So that is a necessity.
Right.
And ideally, we work locally so that we can see what is actually happening with these dogs. And we can see that we're not just supporting some unscrupulous breeding practice in some faraway place, right?
Yes.
Because that unfortunately happens a lot. There's a phrase dubbed retail rescue.
Right. And one thing too to look at with rescue is if if we only support responsible breeders and don't support these unscrupulous breeders, the amount of dogs in rescue is going to go down.
That's exactly it. And the only way we can get there is by researching and making sure that we are supporting the right things. You know, you can't just look at the puppy in front of you. You can't just look at the needs that you see in that puppy in front of you and try to help that puppy or that dog or whatever. You need to know that you're causing collateral damage if you are supporting the retail rescue end of things, right? The people who are trying to manipulate you. It goes so far beyond that one dog.
Right.
It truly does.
Yes.
And not that that one dog doesn't matter. Of course, that one dog does matter, but so do all the dogs behind that dog that are living in abhorrent conditions to be breeder dogs so that you can purchase these dogs from another country and hide the fact that they're actually puppy mill dogs that you're paying huge amounts of money for in a lot of cases.
So people are actually breeding dogs to be rescued.
Yes, absolutely. It's devastating. It is so heartbreaking. But again, the people who are looking to, you know, the people that call you on the phone and say, hello, you've had a charge on your Visa card. Do you know what this is? And when you go, I don't have a Visa card, they hang up. Like, those people don't care about you. They're just looking to sort of suck you in so that you will provide them with what they want so that they can depart you from your money. You know, it's all about money. It doesn't have anything to do with worrying about whether you're going to be able to pay your bills if they have your credit card number. You know, it's not about that. It's about gaining money from you so that, you know, they can better their own situations or put more money in their bank account without having to work for it any harder than scamming. Anyways, I digress. That was a call that I got, though. I picked up my phone. I was like, hello? There's a charge on your Visa card that we just wanted to talk to you about. And my first response, this was a while ago before I really before there was a ton of scam calls all the time and I got wiser and just stopped answering them. But I said, I don't have a Visa because I don't have a Visa. I don't have a Visa. Click.
Interesting.
Well, I'm glad they didn't say whatever MasterCard.
Last year, my mom got one of the grandparent scam calls. She had a boy call her and say, hi, Grandma, do you know who this is?
Oh, my gosh.
And my mom has 5 grandchildren. And so she was a little bit taken aback. And the only one who doesn't live locally was my son, Ty. So she went, oh, is it Ty? Yeah, it's Ty. How are you? How's Grandpa? And, you know, she goes, for the first minute, I was kind of like, oh, maybe this is Ty, but she goes, the way he spoke, though, she thought that's not language Ty uses. Gotcha. And then, of course, when he started to say, well, calling you because I'm in a bit of a bind, I'm at my buddy's wedding in Montreal. And right away, my mom said, I would know if Ty was in Montreal, like he's supposed to be in Nova Scotia. Yeah. And then she said, you're not my grandson, and hung up. But yeah, so these people are.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You know what a good idea is? I heard this on the radio and I immediately started at my sister. You guys need to do this because there's 8 kids, right? So if you have some sort of a phrase or word or a secret code in amongst all the children.
Right. That's a good idea.
So that if you get that call, you can say, what is that word that we agreed upon? And if they don't know, then obviously that's, there's something, there's a doings afoot.
Right. Yes.
There's something going on.
Although I want to get one and go on the offensive and ask them for money. Yeah, I'm so glad you called me. Your father and I aren't doing well. Can you please send us some money?
We need money too, please. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, when you find somebody who's willing to give you some money, think of us. Oh man. Yeah. I mean, it's, we all sit back and go, oh, I would never fall for that. But it's really easy to be manipulated when there's emotions involved, and the people who are manipulative and they know that. They know how to push the right buttons. So I would always want to actually know there's a puppy. So if I don't know the community, right? So say if I'm buying a toller, I know the people in the community. I can get word on people in the community very, very easily. I know that even if it's somebody I don't necessarily know, I can find out about them. I can find out if I can trust them or not. The toller community is a pretty tight-knit one, and it's gotten a little bit bigger over the years that I've been in it, of course, but there's still I constantly see on Facebook, hey, has anybody ever heard of this person? And I constantly see, hey, just a heads up.
Right.
I saw this person, this person was reaching out to me and I didn't get a good feeling about them. You know, they were telling me everything I wanted to hear. And then someone else will pipe up and say, oh yeah, that person tried to contact me as well. And like, you know, there's lots of unscrupulous people trying to get breeding pairs of tollers so that they can breed.
So they can,
And we're very protective as a community. We love our breed. So that takes me back to having breeders who can sometimes be a little bit too invasive, and a lot of times that will put people off. So find somebody who's on the spectrum that you like, that fits for you, who's going to be supportive of you, but not necessarily going to be intrusive. Because finding someone that matches your lifestyle, who you can reach out to, right? Like, I'm pretty self-sufficient with my dogs, but when something happens with Ned in terms of health, I really I want to be in his breeder's pocket in a second to say, like, help me decide what to do here, because she's incredibly knowledgeable about the breed. She's incredibly knowledgeable about dog medicine. She's a very high-end vet tech. She knows her stuff. So I rely on her opinion so much. And I love the relationship that we have, because we're chummy, but she's in BC, and like being able to sort of ignore her and not necessarily keep her updated, because I'm not great at being on social media these days, is okay with her, as long as, you know, if she reaches out, she knows that I'm going to respond back to her, etc. But she's not intrusive like that. Like, she might just say, hey, how are things going, sort of thing, if I haven't talked to her in a while. But I know that on the other end of the spectrum, when I need something, and this has just happened with Ned, he's actually going in for surgery on Thursday of this week, because he has a tiny little lump on his anus and a little lump on his eye that I've been monitoring but wasn't worried about. But because I'm putting him under to take the lump off of his anus, or to have a qualified vet take the lump off of his anus, I'm not going to.
Do-it-yourself surgery.
Yeah, I figured I would have them do the one on his eye as well, because I've been monitoring it and whatnot. So when the vet had first discovered it, he sort of said, you know what, we can take a wait and see approach on this, because it's small. And I was like, okay, but I'm going to contact my breeder and see what she would do, and then I'll let you know what I'm going to do. Because I can't just take that opinion. I need to know what Jamie would do. I need to know what Ned's breeder would do. So, and we went back and forth with a whole bunch of, you know, chit chat about it. And in the end, I decided, like, yep, I like that. I like the support that I've got from her. I don't like wait and see. It doesn't sit well with me. I'd rather just get it done and try to make sure it's not going to be a big issue. So, So yeah, he's going in on Thursday this week, and knock on wood, hopefully everything goes swimmingly, and he's back home Thursday evening, and right as rain, but I'll be anxious as I'll get out. But anyways, like, that's the type of thing, right? I want that support. I want to be able to say, okay, from what you know about this, how can you help me proceed? You know, what's the best decision for this dog, right? It's such a comfortable thing, and it's nice to be able to rely on that thing. Right?
Yes.
So thinking about the community, thinking about knowing the community and being able to connect with a good breeder, whether you're looking in the Golden Doodle community, whether you're looking in the purebred dog community for your breed that you really like, whatever that community is, you can connect with people who will know, no, you know what? Do not go with that big broker website. Because you're either going to get a puppy who is from a puppy mill, or they might close down shop next week, and then you have no support if something happens with health with this puppy, et cetera, et cetera.
I would be horrified if I felt my parents came from the dog's parents came from a puppy mill.
Yeah.
I would be horrified to know that I supported that.
Yeah. And for anybody who doesn't know, just in case people don't know, what is a puppy mill?
A puppy mill is basically a 100% for-profit farming of puppies.
Yeah, large-scale breeding operation.
Large-scale breeding. So often the adults are not kept in good conditions. They're never in the house. Yeah. They're kept in like wire cages. The females only are just bred constantly. They don't go out outdoors to see the sunshine. The male dogs are only used for stud. Their health care is minimal.
Yeah.
A lot of them, when I've seen photos, have horrific eye infections, dental problems, and they're not cared for like
it's a
we would
miserable
care.
life.
It's a miserable, horrific life.
All the SPCA and ASPCA commercials where you see these dogs in cages and they just look pitiful and dirty, and that's a puppy mill.
Yeah.
That's somebody who is just breeding for profit, and they do not care about the puppies, and they don't do any sort of early anything for development.
Right.
And
when
it is, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and when the parents are no longer able
Necessary,
to breed
yeah.
or are breeding puppies with issues, who knows what happens to those parents? They could be dumped in a rescue. They could be.
Sometimes they're sold at auctions.
Yeah,
Sometimes
they could be shot.
Yep, absolutely.
It's it's pretty dire. So real like I want to see my puppy's parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to see them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and think about too. I've not raised human children, but I remember my niece and nephew as young from the onset of their lives until about a year of age. Would probably be about the equivalent of 0 to 8 weeks for a puppy, right? And all the things that happen in that year, can you imagine if the child did nothing but lay in a crib? Right. That was all they did. They laid in the crib, they got their diaper changed maybe every so often, and they got some food thrown in there with them. Right. But there was no stimulation of any sort. There was no touching. There was no tummy time. There was no, what are the, not jungle gyms, but what are the mobile things?
Oh, mobiles.
With all the tactile,
right, yes.
like you squeeze this and it crunches.
Right,
and all of that. It's such important early neurological stimulation for a baby. And there's the exact same thing that needs to be done with young puppies, with a couple of exceptions. It's probably not the mobile situation, et cetera. But you do all sorts of things from day zero,
right? Yeah,
all the way to, what is it, 63 or 56 or something? I don't know. My math's off at this point. But until the puppy goes home at about 7 weeks of age, you should not have a puppy earlier than 7 weeks of age.
Right.
A lot of breeders will keep until 9 or 10. The 8-week mark is usually fairly standard. Right. But if some breeder is telling you that you should take this puppy, and we see this.
Right.
We have students who come in and start the program with their 5-week-old puppy. And
oh my goodness.
It's kind of like, how do you have this puppy already?
Right, yes.
There is so much, the early neurological stimulation stuff, the early socialization stuff. There's so much learning to be done between that 4 and 8 week mark, where the mother should be teaching some boundaries. There should be some friendly adult dogs to teach some boundaries. There should be other puppies to teach boundaries with each other. There's so much learning that happens in that period of time. It's crucial for the development of the dog. The breeder taking the time with each puppy every day with like a little Q-tip, right? And rubbing the paw with a little Q-tip and rubbing the belly with a little Q-tip. That stuff takes time and it's important for the puppies.
Right.
There's so many programs out there to help raise well-developed puppies. And your good breeders are going to pay attention to that. And your inexperienced breeders might miss that. Your bad breeders don't care one bit about that.
Exactly.
All they care about is taking that really cute picture to convince you that this is a really loved, cared for puppy, and taking your check at the end of their duration with this puppy. And so warning signs. Let's talk.
I know another big warning sign.
Okay.
You know what? Buy 2 puppies.
Oh, yeah, that's a...
2 puppies will be easier than 1 because they'll raise each other.
Yeah.
Run from that breeder.
Run screaming.
Yeah. 2 puppies at once is double your work.
Absolutely.
Double your work.
Absolutely. And you might be up for that. Maybe for some reason you have the idea that you want to get 2 puppies. And honestly, it's something that we have advised people against for decades. And we typically do not recommend, because it's like having twins and raising them separately. Like, truly, to raise a well-rounded adult dog, they need to have a lot of confident independence.
Right.
If they are too bonded to each other, if they are not well trained enough individually, etc., there's all sorts of things that can become very big negatives down the road with the dog. And not just the bonding factor, but also the conflict factor, right? If you have 2 two females that you're raising together, for example, when they reach the age of maturity, there's going to be conflict between those females.
Right.
Same with the males, right? It's going to be different types of conflict, but you're going to have conflict. Are you able to recognize what those conflicts may be? Are you able to put good measures in place to prevent those those conflicts from happening, so that you don't suddenly have, this bonded pair that love each other? All of a sudden it falls apart at a specific age, usually around adolescence, and they start fighting, and into adulthood, now they're really trying to kill each other.
Right.
You need to be able to be aware of those things before getting into that situation. But having said that, I digress. I'm going down the wrong path here. But you might want two puppies. So as a good breeder, if I were to approach you and say, hey, you know what? I want you breed Aussies, say. Aussies are a busy working breed.
Right, yeah.
I want two of your puppies so that they will tire each other out. As a good breeder, what are you telling me?
As a good breeder, if the puppies are already on the ground, chances are my puppies have already been spoken for. So, when I buy a puppy, I'm usually prepared to wait a year, 2 years, however long it takes, because I know the puppy that I want. Most breeders have the bulk of their puppies sold, or, at least, 3/4 of the litter is sold.
And that's because they're not breeding for volume.
Right.
They're breeding for quality.
Right. And their chances are they're not going to have another puppy available.
Yeah.
And I think most breeders would say, whoa, do you know what you're getting into having two puppies? Yeah. So most breeders recognize the work that goes into them.
Absolutely.
And, especially if you're a young, busy family, you have multiple kids and you got a lot of stuff on the go, you don't have time for two puppies.
Yeah, for sure. And as a breeder, I'm sure you would spend time educating the person that you're not just letting them raise each other.
Right.
That's a recipe for disaster. And it doesn't usually create good dogs. It usually highlights the bad qualities that you want to eradicate in the dogs. So,
now it can be done. We've had some excellent people in our programs that have raised two puppies.
Yep.
And put the time in, but they've put lots of time in.
Absolutely. And as a breeder, I want to make sure that if it is even a possibility that I would sell this person two puppies, I want them to go into it with their eyes wide open, because I don't want those puppies to get started on the wrong track.
Right.
And I also don't want to get back two puppies who have not been well started. Right. And now I have to figure out how to make life make sense for these poor dogs who are so stuck together that now they can't really function separately, et cetera, et cetera. So,
or an accidental breeding between the two of them. Brothers and sisters should not have puppies.
No, they should not. They should not. There's a lot that goes into breeding for sure. And you really want somebody with some experience, somebody who does it without the idea of profit, because really, there's even though prices for puppies have gotten higher and higher and higher, that's because vet costs have gotten higher and health tests have gotten higher and screenings have gotten higher. There's so much that goes into that cost of the puppy that you do want to make sure that you are taking full advantage of that. And it's not just somebody who is looking to say, hey, you know what? I have this Merle French Bulldog puppy, which, without getting into specifics, Merle is not a natural color in French Bulldogs.
So something else has been added at some point to that dog.
Absolutely. And French Bulldogs are one of the most popular breeds of dogs right now in North America. And they are probably one of the unhealthiest breeds.
They're very unhealthy breed, yes.
So already taking a breed that has severe health issues and then giving it to people who don't really care about those health issues and who just ignore and breed whatever they want because they want to come up with these cute colors that bring $5,000 and $6,000 price tags because people see them and go, unique and fuzzy and cute. That's another one. They've got these
or it has blue eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm buying this dog for looks and I'm ending up with something that I have no idea what I'm getting into in terms of health. And trust us when we say we're not just fear-mongering. We hear the horror stories and we see the bad-tempered dogs and we see heartbroken families who just wanted a dog to love.
Right.
And, everybody fell for this beautiful picture on the internet and now there's no puppy or there's an unhealthy puppy or whatever the case may be. So, oh my goodness.
Right, yes.
It's a bit of an exhausting topic, to be honest, but truly you can protect yourself by doing just a little bit of research.
Yeah.
You know, connect with somebody who can prove that this situation exists, you know, whether it's if you are contacting somebody about a puppy, before you send them any money, maybe ask for their veterinarian's name,
yes.
so that you can reach out and just say, hey, you know what, I'm just considering getting a puppy from so-and-so, and they gave me your number and permission to have you let me know, or, you know.
It's an excellent
might
idea,
need to
yes.
organize that in some way, but is this a good situation? You know, is this person going to be giving the best to the adults that they're breeding? Are they going to be giving the best to the puppies? And, you know, if a vet's been working with that breeder, they know.
Right, yes.
They know what kind of person that is.
If a breeder can't give you a veterinary reference, I would run.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because there's no reason why a breeder should not be able to give you the name of their veterinarian.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at their record. You know, what are they breeding for? Are they breeding pets exclusively? Are they breeding for working lines? Are they breeding for show lines? Do they have an established line, or are they just breeding whatever happens to come across them?
Another good question, if they're a newer breeder, who is their mentor?
Yeah.
Where have they learned to breed from?
Good
Yes.
one. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Right, yes. The breeder that Honda's from, Honda was a first litter.
Okay.
And she had a mentor of a very established Chinese crested breeder who had been guiding her and helping her. So, you know, even though she wasn't an established breeder, she had somebody who was helping.
Yeah, and mentorship is amazing. We've in my time in Tollers, we've seen a lot of the older breeders retire, pass along their lines, etc., after teaching somebody else everything that they possibly can. And it's usually, you know, it might be a 10-year relationship that these people have had to pass this, you know, this breeding program on to the next generation, etc. It warms my heart so much how much they care for their dogs and their lines.
Right, yes.
And they care for the future of those lines. You know, a breeder who is a good breeder should not stop caring at the end of their breeding cycle.
Right.
Like, they will have dogs in the community who potentially are passing on their genes, etc. So they should care far beyond each individual dog. They truly should.
And the reason for this podcast, too, is some people are probably listening going, but I just want a pet. I just want a dog. But
you want a healthy pet.
Right.
And you want a well-tempered pet.
Yes. And by doing all these things, we're eliminating the backyard horrific breeders.
Yeah.
So if people just go, oh, I don't care, I just want a dog, I'm going to grab this one. Think about what you're contributing to.
Yeah.
If we all put more thought and research and educate ourselves, we are going to get rid of the dogs that are sitting in cages suffering. We're going to get rid of all those sad dogs at the SPCA or that are in rescue groups that never should have been bred in the first place if we can all buy responsibly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what? That is a great note to end on. On that note, I'm Instructor Shannon.
Instructor Swanee.
Happy training.
The McCann Dogs Podcast is brought to you by McCann Professional Dog Trainers. We help dog owners to have a well-behaved, four-legged family member. Please give us a call at 905-659-1888 or visit us at mccanndogs.com. Happy training!